When we travel, we often don't think about our impact. We're taking a trip to Paris. We're excited. You get all your stuff together. You got your iPad ready for the plane, and a lot of times we don't think about all that those airplane meals or just buying a bottle of water, and we need to think about those impacts. So I think that we can all agree by just looking at some of those images that we've got a problem. And don't they always say in those different 12-step programs, you have to acknowledge first that you've got a problem? Well, we've got a problem, world, and it's the amount of waste that we generate with food. So, first of all, there's food waste. And by food waste, that is obviously food that's just thrown away. That has nothing to do with the packaging. We'll talk about packaging in a second. So when you think about food waste, the different data available out there says that somewhere between 20 and 40% of all food that is available for human consumption is wasted. And you think about issues of malnutrition, starvation, poverty, and so on, and up to almost half of the food that's available is thrown away? What? That just doesn't make any sense. Even our beloved OPB here in Oregon has been quoting from the United Nations report that up to 25% of food is wasted. And we have to look, though, it's not always the same in every country. So look at different places around the world. Here's another way to look at this. So you've got the industrialized world on the far left, and the green represents the share of food available that was lost or wasted. So 42% in North America and Oceania, 25% in industrialized Asia, and 22% in Europe. Those are substantial numbers. We're not just talking little tiny slivers here. Here's another way to look at that same information. So the orange circles are food that is discarded by consumers. So you buy something, you don't like the flavor, you throw it away. The blue is foods that is lost in production, distribution, spoilage, and so on. And it's really kind of interesting to see who the biggest food wasters are here. Then when we talk about the notion of travel, well, obviously airlines have an impact. We not just the fuel that's used by airlines, but the food that we eat, the beverages that we consume. And I wanted to figure out exactly how much was wasted on airline food and packaging and so on. So there are about 100,000 flights per day. And no, that's per year. Well, that would be a lot of flights per day. Could you imagine? 100,000 flights per year, half of which are passenger traffic. So those are the Lufthansa's, United's, Alaska Airlines type flights. So if you take 50,000 flights times 250 passengers on average, that's potentially 12,500,000 meals that are being eaten and or portions of that being wasted. Now you might say, well, not everyone is purchasing a meal or not everyone is eating the food, but there's still waste. So for example, in the United States right now with the airlines, it's very fashionable to charge for meals on planes. But if those meals aren't sold and they can't go past a certain date, they do have to be thrown away. Now compare that to, there are some changes happening in the industry and some initiatives like Lufthansa has its Discover Slow Food initiative for business class, but why is that reserved just for business class? Why can't that be for all passengers? And you look at, I think Alaska Airlines is probably, it's the best airline I've seen in the world in terms of its commitment to sourcing locally and regionally and recycling and basically reducing waste. And they're really doing a fantastic job, and I wish more airlines followed suit. But then we also should look at cruise lines as well. And this is probably one of the most egregious offenders in the travel industry in terms of waste. And there has been a lot of effort in the past decade especially to try and get better at that. But I think that what I see out there is it's almost lip service. Really. Well, we've got this new green sailing program or green seas program or whatever it's called. Every cruise line has got some permutation of this. And my impression when I'm looking at and analyzing these different programs, and they kind of make it look like it's all under control. Yes, we generate waste, but we pulverize it and then we treat it and none of the waste goes out into the ocean. Or I know one cruise line, I believe it's Royal Caribbean, that doesn't dump anything unless it's 12 miles or further from the shore. Does that make it okay? So anyway, so cruise lines are generating a lot of waste. And I just wonder how much passengers actually know about what their cruise lines are doing in terms of reducing, reusing, and recycling. But I think that we're talking about travel, but really it goes back to our own behavior and whether we take that behavior on the road with us or not. So one example that I love to use is this notion of food packaging where labels say that you have to use a product by a certain date. And you've been trained ever since you were a little child that, oh my gosh, it says used by February 7. Out it goes. Out it goes. We don't want to risk that milk could be possibly spoiled. Well, why don't you open the milk and smell it? You could even taste it, and if it doesn't taste good, you could spit it out. There's an idea. But no, we're trained that that's it. You send it off to the garbage dump. But did you know that of our 50 U.S. states, that the states can't even agree on the rules for the use by dates. So half of the states basically say that you have to remove the product from the shelf at a certain time. Other states don't. Now, in countries like the UK, they have a different approach. They are trained and know that they should not necessarily throw food away by that date, that they should, use common sense and have a look and a sniff and see if that food is still usable or not. So there's an opportunity here, I think, for teachers to work with kids and help them to understand and maybe even work to educate some of the parents too. So it starts at home, right? Here's another example of changing our behavior that starts at home. This is grocery store in Berlin called Unverpackt, and they are training, right? They're educating their customers to bring their own packaging, whether they're bringing plastic bags or plastic takeout style containers or whatever it is, but almost everything that's sold in their store is sold in bulk. Well, we do bulk a lot here, but it's usually relegated off to the corner of the grocery store. It might even have a stigma attached to it with it. Oh, you're buying bulk. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. But this is actually the best way to do it. I mean, can you imagine if you put 2 pounds of rice in a plastic bag, and then you can reuse that bag many times and then eventually recycle it, you have had no impact by purchasing that rice versus purchasing rice that's been packaged in a paper bag or a burlap bag or even worse, something that's plastic coated. Have you seen those plastic coated burlap bags? I bet they're not recyclable. But again, it's changing that behavior at home before we even get on the road. So what can we do to reduce our food waste? Well, I think the first thing is to look at our own behavior. And like I said, sometimes we take it for granted. We eat 3 meals a day, and it's hard for us to get a temperature check on really the impact we're having on the industry. But accept and order smaller portions. There's a reason why the small plates trend has become popular, because more and more people are realizing that they don't actually need to eat that much food. Or there's also a cost savings involved as well by ordering only appetizers, for example. So reduce consumption, and then education of youth growing up as well. And this is then the behavior that those younger people will take on the road with them when they travel. I think the best investment in society is education, is helping our kids to understand how they can be better custodians of our planet. And then really relearning how to cook healthy at home. And that then gives you an appreciation for the amount of effort it goes into to create something tasty and healthy. It's nice to be able to pick up a takeout coffee or a takeout burger, and it's easy and fast, but what if you actually brought your food with you instead? You'd save a lot of money, and you would eat healthier. You'd know exactly what you're putting in your body as well. So just food for thought, so to speak. But when we travel, there are some other ways to experience things that can alter how we eat when we travel. One is trying peer-to-peer dining. And if you're not familiar, has anyone heard of peer-to-peer dining? Yeah, a few of you. You're familiar with Airbnb, right? Well, it's kind of like Airbnb, but for dining. So one website is called Book a Local, and you can go there and you can kind of see. So when you travel, it'll show you the different destinations it has, and you can choose where you want to go, and it will match you up with local people who will either host you in their own home or meet you in a restaurant. And so there you're having a truly authentic experience. I think that sometimes when we travel, we have fear about trying a new food, or especially in a new language, or especially in a place where we don't read the alphabet. Imagine like going to Russia and trying to look at a menu, or China and trying to look at a menu, if there even is a menu. How would you eat? And, by the good grace of colleagues I've been with, they've always ordered for me. I mean, I love going to Korea, but I don't read Korean, but they always order for me. So it's kind of that, having that authentic experience with locals when you travel, it's quite nice. And just saying no to those things that are such and such nice to have. So I don't need a straw in that drink, thanks. I was at a restaurant the other day, and all the drinks came out with straws, and I thought, you could ask me if I'd like a straw, right? Sure, have straws available for your customers if they want them, and maybe there's a medical need that they need to use a straw. That's fine, have them available, but make them on request. Or on airplanes, for example, if you've ever had the good luck to fly in business class, they will bring the rolls to you instead of just putting them on your plate. I don't really like airplane bread, right? I mean, does anyone here really like airplane bread? Why bother with it, But if more and more people just say no to that airline roll, then eventually the airline's going to get the point, maybe we should either improve the bread or not have bread, right? Or offer an alternative like crackers. And bringing snacks with us when we travel. I mean, I always travel with nuts or chocolate or something and just have in my bag. I don't need to be part of that food waste problem. Now, there is a burger restaurant in the Salt Lake City airport that I really like. And I went there and ordered food, and I looked at the amount of waste on the table. Afterwards, they put it in to-go bag, because you, of course, have to have a to-go bag. The burger was wrapped in 2 wrappings. There were all the sauces that were in those little throwaway things. The French fries were messy, so I needed a fork. Then there was the French fry. And it was like, really, for a meal? All of this laid out on the table, and I was causing that enormous amount of waste. So I try to reduce and bring snacks with me and not purchase as much, especially in situations like that. And then ask questions. So in other countries and cultures where we are not as eco-sensitive as Portland is known for being very sustainable and eco-friendly, and places like Boulder, Colorado, Vermont, Sweden, all of Northern Europe, Germany, places are very sensitive to these kinds of situations. So we need to ask questions when we travel. Well, what do you do with that food waste? Or are these boxes recyclable, for instance? So let's talk a little bit about packaging waste, right? I think that a lot of times people are, especially small business owners, are scared to broach this topic of sustainable packaging because they think it's going to cost a lot. Well, I would like to let you know that our caterer here for the event today has informed me that BioWare, disposable glasses, quote unquote, and utensils is fully compostable, fully biodegradable. It goes to a commercial composting facility where it's degraded faster than if you did it at home. And the price is 1/4 the price of real silverware and real glasses. So you might say, well, why not just have real silverware and glasses and not even deal with food waste? Okay, A is cost, and B is practicality. And I'm not unrealistic here. I mean, yes, we want to travel. I'm not saying don't stop traveling. I'm saying, well, if we had everything was biodegradable and compostable across the board, we wouldn't need to worry as much about the volume of trash that we're generating. Yes, we still need to worry about it and still need to reduce, but if that plastic knife falls down in between the seats on the plane, I'm not going to worry about adding to the landfill kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about? So we made this decision as an event. We're still using throwaway, but it's compostable. We're trying to be as responsible as we can, but still keep the cost affordable so that we can produce an event. There was a survey online asking different business owners about what kinds of packaging they would use or what they would be willing to use based on things like renewable ingredients, domestically produced or produced in China, mostly recyclable or not at all recyclable. And by far, more than half of the businesses said they'd pay a little bit more, so 20 cents, to use a product that was made domestically, that was made from a renewable resource like a sugar cane or a bamboo, that was not recyclable, but was compostable. And the alternative there was domestic materials non-recyclable throwaway at 15 cents. So these business owners said, I'll pay 33% more in order to have these extra goodies. And then it becomes a marketing benefit too, right? And you can show yourselves as a sustainable, eco-friendly business. Now, we are seeing change. It's not all doom and gloom. Things are evolving. One thing I'm seeing a lot in airports now is this refill your own water bottle station, which is great. That's fantastic. So you can still take your own water bottle with you through security. There's different styles of water bottles. Some even come with built-in filters now, which is really handy and helpful. And then even lesser developed nations are getting into the recycling game as well, which is great to see. But it takes time. This is not going to be done by January 1st, 2016. It takes time, and we know that. One alternative to plastic is something called PLA. And it's a green packaging, and it's made from either corn or sugarcane. Now, it's not suitable in every situation. There are some issues of permeability, especially with regard to moisture. But that said, for some products, it might actually be a suitable alternative. Here's a website, Be Green Packaging, that has an entire array of food service packaging available. And if you eat out in Portland, or for those people who are visiting here today, you'll see, I can't remember the last time I went to a restaurant in the city that gave me like a hard clamshell plastic takeout container. Almost everyone is using these here, and that's fantastic. It makes me feel better about taking some goodies home to the dogs, right? This is a website out of South Africa, and they're using renewable sugarcane to create takeout packaging. Fully biodegradable, fully compostable. Here's another company that's got an even wider array of packaging, including trash bags that are fully biodegradable and compostable. So again, just like in reducing our food consumption, we have to look at our behavior in our food packaging waste as well. Now, as a business owner, there are certain challenges that we have to face. So, for example, changing the supply chain. Changing process, changing thinking, changing the distribution system. If I'm going to consider using a new product or a sustainable product, that means I've got to find new vendors, get them into the system, vet them. Are they ISO 9000 certified if that's an issue for our organization? Are things organic? Is that certified? And so on. I've got to train staff. I've got to get things into the sales and marketing process. So as a business owner, that's a lot to digest. And a lot of times it's just easier to say, we'll do it eventually, or we'll do it when we have to. So logistics are an issue as well. But the perceived cost, and we know, like the example that I shared with you about the BioWare, it is not necessarily more expensive to go this route. But in some countries, this is still a novelty, so it is more expensive. Or in some countries, these items need to be imported, and of course those carry a premium price. So as time goes on and as we evolve, I think we'll start to see the prices come down, especially in other countries, and this will get more into the distribution system. But for right now, there's quite a few business owners out there that are saying, if it ain't broke, we're not going to try and fix it. I also think that there's too much marketing noise out there in the world. You're checking your text messages, you're checking your emails, the traffic light's changing, people are talking to you in the car, the radio's on, there's so much going on. And we are overwhelmed. And to add this notion of, I'm not going to have that drink on the Portland to Seattle flight that lasts 23 minutes and generate that plastic waste, to take that effort to think is just one more thing to add to your plate. But maybe you've just now had that thought, and you don't need to have that thought again. And we planted the seed for you here today. So just to kind of summarize and wrap up here, it is a global problem. This is everywhere in the world. It's not a uniquely American problem. It's not a European problem. We see this everywhere on the planet. We know that biodegradable and compostable products exist, so that's not an issue. We know that there is irregular availability around the world. So we can't just say here in our high and mighty, oh, well, you should do this or you need to do this. It's not always possible, especially in some of the lesser developed nations that don't have the supply chain infrastructure to be able to bring this into market. And it is slow to enter the supply chain. So it's that change in consumer behavior. Business owners are consumers. So it's that change in behavior and thinking that needs to start happening, and then it will be adopted more and more quickly. Misleading labels, another thing to think about, that will, again, affect our behavior and help us to change our own behavior. And the perceived high cost is a deterrent. Well, we've shown that that's not necessarily the case in every situation. So I think really change happens with education and educating consumers, and then those consumers who start demanding more and more. And we're seeing that, but I'd like to see it happen a little bit more quickly. Uh-oh. Jesse, can you advance the slide? There we go. So just to summarize, I think what a lot of us don't do enough is think. And I'm guilty of this too. I mean, we get busy and we forget to think. So let's think a little bit more. So the next time that flight attendant throws that packet of peanuts at you on the plane, do you really want to eat it? If I'm hungry, sure, I'll have some peanuts, but I don't want those pretzels. Those are gross. So take those pretzels back. I mean, they just hand them out like it's money. And they almost act offended when I say I don't want that. Well, okay. You're too good to eat my pretzels. Well, yeah, I'm really not interested. Thanks very much. But I'd also like to plant a seed with you. I think that we as consumers need to move from the word sustainability to responsibility. Because to me, sustainability implies that the status quo is worth sustaining, right? I think we just need to be responsible and say, I don't think so. Or, you know what, I'm going to change my opinion on that. It's not sustainability. We are being responsible consumers, taking a stand and making a statement. And it starts at home. So like I was saying before about education and society and training our kids and so on, because they're going to grow up and they're going to travel the world. And if we can help to send that message out into the world, we'll all be better custodians of our planet. And I just had to throw this in. This is one of my major pet peeves is hotels, and this has nothing to do with food, but hotels that line their bins like this. Really? I was staying at a wonderful hotel in Macau. They were paying for it, not me. And they didn't use a liner like this, It was you just put your trash in there, the maid sorts it out, it happens. But I've seen maids in other hotels where there's a Kleenex in this, and they'll wrap up the whole thing. Really? Anyway, I had to share that because if that bothers you too, raise your hand. There we go. Thank you, everybody. So just to wrap up, to help you in your journey, I put some resources here on the screen that I found very fascinating. I was having a conversation with the Travelers Against Plastic people this week. They're based in Seattle. And we're going to see if we can work more together, maybe form some kind of strategic partnership and see what we can do to help their efforts and vice versa. Because, we as an association need to take a stand. And we are taking a stand. And I think we're helping other people to think. Like I said, we need to think more. And we're helping to affect that change. We can't do it alone. We need great partners. And hopefully TAP will be that next great partner. So do we have time for a quick question maybe?